What's going on, you guys? My name is Nathan, and today I'm going to show you how to make Planetside 2 look great. Now, what I'm going to be doing to accomplish this is one tweak that I've come up with, and I'm sure wouldn't be hard to figure out on your own, but I've sort of come up with this, and SweetFX using presets that I've created. Now, all this is doing is throwing post-processing on the image, and for SweetFX, and the tweak that I've come up with forces letterboxing into the game. Now, SweetFX has letterboxing in the form of throwing black bars over the top and bottom of your image, and I tried this at first, and though it looked interesting, it was only usable if you were going to play HUDless, because otherwise it was cutting off the top and bottom of your HUD. It also made the menus almost unusable unless you knew where everything was. So the workaround for this is I found out how to create I created a custom resolution in the NVIDIA control panel, which shows up to the game, and then you can force it to play in that resolution. So there's still letterboxing, but it's actually forcing the game to render with less vertical resolution, which has its advantages. You're not actually losing out, and I can explain why in a little bit. So let me go over why I think this is good for the game. And I find that Planetside 2 as a game can look really, really good. You know, it has large set pieces. You can end up with these large fights either in daytime or at nighttime. The game looks pretty cool, but I got a lot more out of playing it, especially in those situations when the game looked more cinematic. And I don't know if that makes sense, but if you think about how a movie's colors and the way that it is sort of processed make things look more cinematic and more pleasing to the eye, I'm essentially doing that to the game using SweetFX. And if you're a fan of letterboxing, and I know some people are like I am, it makes the game really, really amazing. It sort of imitates having a wider field of view than you do, but if you turn on wide angle view mode, which is what you're going to be using if you use either a 21:9 monitor or if you're using an Infinity or NVIDIA surround setup, you actually keep the same vertical resolution that you would if you were just playing at normal 1080p, but you're gaining horizontal resolution because it's almost as if you were playing on a 21:9 monitor. I'm doing the equivalent, I'll show you how to do the equivalent of 235 letterboxing, which is pretty standard for most movies. And that's sort of the look I'm trying to achieve here, is a very filmic look, a very cinematic experience when it comes to playing Planetside. And I think I've accomplished that fairly well. And the whole point is to show you how to do that using the presets I've made, and eventually going in and you can customize your own, of course. So now let me get into how to actually do all of this. So first things first, and I'm going to go over how to install SweetFX. And for those of you who have used SweetFX in the past, it's a fairly painless installation. You're essentially copy and pasting files which hook to the DirectX DLL, if I'm not mistaken, and apply effects to the image after the fact, sort of in between when your graphics card is processing everything and before the signal hits your monitor. At least that's how I understand it. And for the most part, the installation is pretty painless. The only difference here than a regular SweetFX installation is that natively SweetFX doesn't work with 64-bit applications, and many patches back, Planetside was updated to force run in its 64-bit mode. And so that's an issue for people who run on SweetFX. But someone has gone and created the patch DLLs that you need to run SweetFX with a 64-bit application or game. And so I've included both the 32-bit and 64-bit application, or 64-bit and 32-bit DLLs in the file I'm going to put up to download, which the link will be in the description for, of course. And I'm going to show you how to install that now. So the first thing you're going to want to do after you download the file, which should be make Planetside look great, SweetFX plus presets plus instructions. I've written up instructions for this, so you don't have access to the video and you have the file downloaded, you still know how to do everything. That includes the letterboxing as well. So what you're going to want to do first is navigate to your Planetside 2 directory. Well, most likely your Steam Games directory, and then Planetside 2. So for me, that's my Games hard drive, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, and then Planetside 2. So this is where you want to be. I do already have this installed, but I'll replace the files since I'm showing you how to install it as well. I just downloaded the zip folder, or in my case put the zip folder on my desktop for easier showing of how to do everything. You can put it wherever you want. You can save it, or you can just delete it after you've installed everything. what we're going to do is open it up. I'm using 7-zip, obviously WinRAR is okay, whatever you're comfortable with using. And you can just highlight these and drag and drop them into your Planetside 2 directory. Obviously you won't have this error, I do because I already have SweetFX installed, but I'll just copy and replace everything. And usually that would be it. But like I said, the 32-bit DLLs do not work with Planetside 2 since it's forced to run in 64-bit now. But if you see the folder x64 fix here, you're going to want to go in there, copy both the DLLs, go back, and paste them into your Planetside 2 directory. Now you want to do copy and replace because this will overwrite the 32-bit compatible DLLs with the 64-bit. I don't know if they're backwards compatible, but I imagine that shouldn't matter since Planetside 2 really requires a lot of RAM at this point in its development. I think just running the 64-bit version is a better option than trying to force it to run in its 32-bit mode. Now we're going to talk about presets for a bit. Now for this download, I've included a selection of presets that I've created myself. I've created a general preset, which seems to work fairly well across all continents, and it's actually what I run most of the time. And I've included presets dedicated for each of them. One for Indar, one for Esamir, one for Amarish, and one for Hassan. For the most part, they can all be used across all continents, but if you're not going to go through the hassle of changing them individually, or if you know you're going to swap continents fairly often, I do recommend you keep it on the general preset. And that's also the easiest option for if you just want to download this, paste it in, and start playing. It's already set to general, so you're good to go. But if I go look at the presets folder right now, you can see that you have the presets that I've made. You have the default SweetFX preset, which is just curves and Luma Sharpen, and maybe some forced MSAA, something along those lines. I don't remember, or SMA, something like that. We also have Nameless's preset. It's very popular. A lot of people have used this in the past, and I'm sure a lot of people use it now, as well as a photorealistic preset that I found, and it was actually, pretty nice looking. But for the most part, when I'm playing, I tend to stick to the general preset I created because it has that filmic look I was talking about, or a more filmic look than Planetside usually has. And now if you want to go through, what I'm going to show you how to do real quick is how to change these presets. Because by default, I have it set to point to this one. But if you want to point it to any of the others, I'm going to show you how to do that very quickly. If you go back into the root directory of Planetside 2, where you copy and pasted all of the files from SweetFX that I've given you, you can scroll down here and find the SweetFX _preset file. And all you're going to do to change the preset is change this line here. Don't delete any of the slashes, don't delete any of this, and do not delete the last quote. You also want to make sure you keep the .txt at the end, because that file denomination, if not there, causes it not to work and not to load any presets. And so I was wrong, it's not loading the my general preset by default, it's loading the default SweetFX settings. So if I wanted to change it to general, this is what I would do. I'm going to scroll back up to presets. I'm going to right click on this, click rename, just so I can copy the file name real quick. I'll go back to the preset, highlight just this part that I want to replace, and put this in, and click save. Now, when SweetFX loads on the game starting up, it'll automatically point to this preset instead, and it works like that with all the other presets as well. Or if there's any you want to go download, just put whatever you name them to in there. Just remember to not delete the .txt at the end, as well as that ending quotation mark, because those need to be there for this to work. Now that you've got SweetFX installed, I'm going to show you how to set up forced letterboxing. And this works for other games, not just Planetside 2, and it's actually pretty interesting, especially if you like the letterbox look, because this is a very good implementation. It's fairly painless, and it works well. There's not really any issues. But for most of you, this isn't the look that you're going to go for. You're probably going to stick with just SweetFX and keep Planetside the way it looks, because this is a pretty drastic change to the aesthetic. I like it a lot actually, but for most of you, you're probably going to want to stay away from this because it's not something that will suit your taste, I would assume. So first things first, you're going to right click on your desktop and go to NVIDIA Control Panel. At least that's my case because I have a GTX 770. If you're running an AMD graphics card, you're going to open Catalyst Control Center. Now, the steps are going to be very similar, I assume, for both cards, but I can only show you how to do it on NVIDIA because that's what I have available to me. You're going to want to go to the Change Resolution tab under the display header. Then, I find that if I click around after I open this, then this Customize button gets grayed out, so I'd have to close and reopen it. But you're going to want to click Customize and click Create Custom Resolution. Now, here's where you're going to set up your horizontal and vertical pixels, essentially, that you're going to want this to use. The equivalent of 235 letterboxing is about 1920 by 800. I believe it's technically 810, but I might be getting that mixed up with 21 by 9. Keep your refresh rate. For the most part, you're only going to be touching vertical lines. Keep your refresh rate at native. For most of you, it's going to be 60. If it's not, you probably know that. Horizontal 1920 and vertical 800. This is the setup for 1080p monitor. If you have a different resolution, you're going to want to do the calculations. Next, you're going to want to click test because there's no way to save this without testing it. Then click yes. Now you can see that I have this resolution in my list. So I'm going to click OK, and this is actually here now. It's a resolution that's available as an option in-game or on Windows, and I'll show you right now. If you click on your desktop, right-click, and go to Screen Resolution, and click on your primary monitor, and go down just a bit, you can see that 1920 by 800 is now a resolution option in the selected list. You don't have to do it this way. If you do it this way, you're going to be setting your desktop resolution to 1920 by 800, and that's not really the most elegant solution. The reason we set a custom resolution in the NVIDIA control panel, and the importance of it showing up here, is that now in Planetside, this also shows up as a resolution. In your graphical settings menu in Planetside, you will now have the option to set the game to 1920 by 800. So instead of forcing your desktop to run at this resolution, you can keep everything in 1920 by 1080 just like you normally would, but set Planetside to 1920 by 800. So when you open it, it letterboxes itself. When you close it, you don't have to go set anything back on your desktop. I find it's just more elegant this way. But obviously you can do what you want. Now, since it's like this, it will also show up in other games as an option. So I've tried other things. I've played Black Ops, I played COD 4, I played Counter-Strike, various other games in this resolution. I still like the letterbox look, so it's actually pretty fun, but Planetside is one of those games that happens to scale well with it. The text doesn't get too distorted. The UI scales well. It's actually a really enjoyable experience. And when you turn on wide angle view mode and you're actually gaining horizontal view, the game plays really, really well, and I like it a lot. Now, I need to make a few disclaimers before I end this video, and that's that running SweetFX in Planetside 2 has apparently caused people to get banned from the game before. Now, I've ran SweetFX for 2 years on and off during different stages of the game, and I've never ran into that kind of issue. But it's undeniable that you can see people who have posted on the SOE forums saying that they've gotten banned from the game for using SweetFX. For the most part, it seems like these people were using SweetFX to give themselves an unfair advantage. And in the case of the presets I've given you, that's not really the case with these. In fact, in most cases, you're probably going to be at a disadvantage when using these because darks are going to be a lot darker, brights might be brighter. So I don't foresee there being any problems. It's just something to keep in mind that it is a possibility. The other thing is that these might not be very beneficial to you if you're not already playing on Ultra. You really need to have shadows on, though maybe high would be fine. But these presets are for people who are already playing the game maxed out and want the game to look even better. This is a way to get more detail out of the game, to see a more stylized, cinematic looking game. And because I'm using things like emulated HDR and additional anti-aliasing on top of what's already in the game, you're going to see a bit of a performance hit. So if now you're playing on Ultra but you're still sitting on the edge of maybe 30 FPS, you might want to consider either dropping off some of the settings or not using this at all. just a word of warning, and things to keep in mind about this. That being said, if you are someone who's running this game on Ultra and you do have the horsepower to run this on top of the game already running like that, it does look very, very nice, and I'm a huge fan of it. Now, to quickly wrap up this video, I'd like to, of course, thank you guys for watching, and I hope this works well for you. I hope it's what you were expecting on how to make the game look better using just a few tweaks and a little bit of post-processing. I personally feel like it adds a lot, so I hope you do as well. If you're wondering why I didn't include any gameplay, I actually did. That opening cinematic is all direct out of Planetside. The first half on Esamir and the second half on Amrish, that's all what my game looks like while I'm playing, the letterboxing and everything. The Amrish is actually from an older cinematic video that I did that I wasn't able to post, and I'm pretty sure I had a little bit of color correction done in After Effects, but I don't remember it being very major, and comparing it to how my game looks now, it's very similar. However, the Esamir one, or the section of that video that's from Esamir, is direct out of the game. There's nothing done to it. So if you want to see what it looks like, feel free to go back and look at that. I would go in and record more gameplay, but right now XSplit is having a few issues with the most recent update, the auto detect picking up Planetside, and I'm not able to add it manually. I don't know why that is, so I apologize for not being able to show anymore, but I'll link to the live stream archive where I was streaming with some friends when I was playing with the forced letterboxing and SweetFX on. So if you want to get a sense as to how the game performs and how it looks while playing, you can see that there. So again, thank you guys for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative and thorough enough to help you guys get this set up. I'll have the links for the files to download, as well as that live stream archive I was talking about in the description. And I hope you guys have a good day. Enjoy playing some Planetside 2.